Welcome to today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. My name is David Gilliland. We've got Chris May with Quadrant Advisory on with us. So glad to have you. And you're calling in from, where are you calling in from again, Chris?
The land of thoroughbred horses and bourbon, Lexington, Kentucky.
That's right, Lexington, Kentucky. Delighted to talk with you.
Great to
So
be here.
tell us a little bit. How'd you get started, Chris?
So my background
Oh,
was
and I guess you should tell them what business this is. Like outsourced CFO. Get our numbers straight, help us actually see into this business so we can make smart decisions. Is that fair?
That's right. Yeah, outsourced accounting and fractional CFO for what we call growth businesses. And so we are professionalizing companies' accounting and financial functions, right? Helping them scale and take it to the next level. And so my background was in finance, have an MBA, worked in New York in the hedge fund world briefly, and I timed that perfectly right around 2008 when everything just went completely sideways there. Sort of pivoted to corporate finance and landed as a sort of deputy CFO at a consulting firm in DC, where I was in DC for about 13 years before moving here to Kentucky a couple years ago. But my time as that deputy CFO for the consulting firm, I noticed this sort of market gap where people either had these small growth businesses either had a bookkeeper, sort of your baseline bookkeeping support, or they had a fully built out accounting and finance function. But the in between was missing. There was a lack there, and so that my thesis was to fill that in between. Right, the folks who needed more professionalized help in the accounting and finance function didn't need the entire kit and caboodle, didn't have the resources for it, or their business model just did not need to support that. So I actually talked my boss at the time into being client number one, sort of recalibrating my role there. And so I owe a big debt of gratitude to him for agreeing to that. And I said, I'm going to give this a year. If I can get a couple more clients to come in, and it was just me with a laptop in my, in my living room. If I can do this in a year, then we'll keep going. If not, I'll just go back to the corporate world and be a finance guy there. So luckily it's worked out. A lot of hard work and shaking the trees everywhere I could to find those first few clients. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that, that grind in the early stages. But it's been a little over 7 years now. We're a team of about 28 people, remote company all over the country, and having a great ride and loving doing it.
Very cool. Very cool. And I mean, you've been on this ride for a bit. I know we say we all love it. We know there's a lot of cost.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of headaches. The family sometimes wondered where we were, or we were, we were there and present, and the business is wondering where we were
Mm-hmm.
because of all the demands. But since you've passed that $1 million threshold, and you're well above that now, what have you learned? What's helped you double and triple since passing that time that may help some of our listeners?
Yeah, I think in a B2B service business like ours, people are everything, right? I think Richard Branson said, he said, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your clients. And that saying really resonated with me, and it holds true today, right? And so finding the best people, nurturing those people, investing in those people, making sure that they have the tools to succeed, that your communication is clear, and your expectations for them are continuing to be laid out, reviewed, and looked at. That has been a huge foundation for us to keep growing. And so when as we've sort of made that the forefront of our core values and our ethos at Quadrant, that's translated to clients being delighted, which is translated to more opportunities, more referrals, and allowed us to continue to grow. And so focusing on our people has been the key and the priority to growing. And when I started the business, as I mentioned, it was just me. I was every aspect of the company. And so those iterations from being the main service provider to hiring those right people to putting processes and systems in place and continuing to get out of the day to day. Unfortunately, at this stage, I am not focused on servicing clients day to day. I have a team of much smarter individuals than me that do that and that I rely on. But sort of taking those iterations and knowing when to execute, those changes and the inflection points in the business, that I think has been a huge differentiator and something that, frankly, I sort of learned on the go. And so plenty of mistakes were made. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like you build this plane as you fly it, if you will. But I say all of that to sort of tie it in a bow of resourcefulness and intuition. Trust your intuition as an entrepreneur and be as resourceful as you can. There is so much information. There are so many people out there that will help you if you just look and ask. And so along this journey, I was just a bulldog asking people for help and looking whenever I had a problem and figured it out. And so that resourcefulness and intuition went a long way for me.
Very cool. Very cool. Let me capture a couple of things that you said there. I Again, after passing the $1 million mark, you realized even more importantly why those right people mattered, right? Like
Mhm.
you just had to do it. But you started that earlier. You were getting the right people in place. And then the second thing that you pointed out, you said briefly, was this processes. I had to figure out the processes. In fact, each stage in your business, all those inflection points, or uh, if we don't do them well, we call them the plateaus of your growth
Yeah, we've had
instead
plenty of
of the
those.
stages of your growth, right? We've all been through them. It's kind of like the formula for success changed on us, and it
Mhm.
did, right? Especially just around the size of the team and the number of clients we were taking care of. The old way of doing it just didn't work. You had to put in a new system. You had to put in a new process. You had to elevate this person and get them where they needed to be. And you just constantly shifting. And you probably had to let go of a lot of things that you used to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really believe small business, let's call it five sub million, sub 5 million revenue businesses, more so than a little bit later stage or medium sized businesses, are just this series of experiments,
Yeah.
constantly experimenting something. And I use something that was sort of championed by Jeff Bezos called the two-way door framework. Right. And so in business and in life, it applies in both personal and professional settings, you're going to be presented with opportunities. And if it's a one way door, meaning you can't walk back through it, you have to take an extreme amount of measure and precaution and, distill the information to make that decision, in a much more detailed and granular way. If it's a two-way door, meaning you can walk back through it, just walk through it because it doesn't take much to walk back the other way. And so early on, when I was presented with two ways doors, I didn't walk through them. I had a bit of what I call analysis paralysis,
Yep.
taking on
Yep.
that risk and how is it going to change my business, my life? Am I going to fail? And then quickly starting to learn and identify what's a one way and a two-way door and just walking through all the two-way doors.
Cool. I love that. And that's the area the fail fast applies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Fail that's an atomic bomb that blows up your whole business. You have to be careful with, but there's so few. There's so few. Like, so I love that. Great advice. Thanks so much, Chris. So now you're at this stage and you're really getting, I mean, you've got to be, given your industry, the number of people you've been talking, what are you, 4 or 5 million now?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that spot. You've got some of those things taken care of. You have the new challenges. Let's talk about the things that you care about now. They're like, this is what I'm considering. This is what I'm looking at doing. Or this is, we got to work through this. What are some ideas? What can we help with? Give us something we can help you take your next step for this new stage of your business.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, and know, looking forward to hearing from your listeners and audience and some ways that can help me here. My challenge right now is being a leader to our leaders within the organization, right? And
Yep.
building that leadership team and that roster of people that I can depend on to sit in those roles and execute, very high level within the business to take it to the place that we want to go. And, we use a quarterly OKR framework, objectives and key results. We have
Yeah.
a 4-person leadership at the moment. And so we spend time to think about our business strategically. What are our short term goals on a quarterly basis, annual basis, 3 years out? We review that with the leadership team and our team writ large. But I think at this stage, my biggest question is, how have other people at a stage of business that I'm at Quadrant built out more leaders within the organization, not individual contributors, right? The leadership people. We need some more of those, and that's not something that I've done before. So I welcome all advice there.
I love it. For the listeners, just know that that question is is the number one question to solve for growth around the people from this stage all the way up to 100 plus employees. That it's answering that question. How do I lead leaders, and how do I build them, and how do I build them fast enough for our growth?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the right ones, because you're getting more away from the team. They're going to be doing so much of it, and a highly competent person in that role who is a mismatch for your company and what you actually care most about is a highly destructive one. That's a it's a two-way door, but it's a really painful one going through and coming back.
Right.
It's serious stuff. Um, what size, like, what is your goal, Chris? How big are you trying to get,
We think about,
or impact you're trying to have?
yeah, I mean, we think about growth, not necessarily around an economic size, right? We have grown methodically and with discipline. We, keep our margin in perspective, our team in perspective, our clients in perspective, and culture. And so, growth for the sake of top line growth has not been something that we've pursued. We want to essentially double our business every 3 years. That's sort of our
Okay,
economic goal, right? And so, but with that, as we've talked about, comes other challenges in order to reach that goal, and different types of formulas and different types of processes. And so, um, at the end of the day, we just want to run a profitable business that we all enjoy working at. We enjoy the work that we do. We enjoy our colleagues and life. We spend a lot of time at work and working even in a remote environment, which has its own challenges, but we want it to be a fulfilling experience for everybody, right?
cool.
Leadership, individual contributors, clients. That's the bottom line. And profitable, has to be a profitable endeavor. One of our core values is clients first, team always, right? And so sort of encompasses those two, just key pillars, right? Our team has to be at the forefront, clients also right there with them. They don't exist without each other.
Great. I bring that up just to make sure you had some of those ducks in a row. It sounds like you do. The core values, you've got a handful probably picked out. That was one of them, right? Rattle off your other core values.
So it's, let me pull it up really quick. So we have clients first, team always, demand excellence and deliver outstanding results, communicate with impact, believe it's possible, and enjoy the journey. Those are
Cool.
our core values at Quadrant.
The reason I like for the listeners, I just want us to sit in there and say, oh, so not just any outsourced CFO, not just any leader for those outsourced CFOs, but ones that that act like this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a little different. The enjoying the journey. There's some of them are very capable, but they're just grumpy all the time. And that works in some place, but doesn't work for yours, right? It would mess things up. Even if they were fantastic at managing tasks, projects. Now, the way they would impact people would be too negative. It would take away too much of the joy of the journey for what you've got going on, right? Um, and so when we're first thinking of building other leaders, though, your top four people probably fit those values really solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want you to let a single one of those other people be off on any one of those values at all. They have to be on all five. Okay, so that's one of the things. And first and foremost, a lot of times we'll promote someone into a leadership role because they hit their numbers, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. I'm not going to promote someone who can't even do their day job, but we promote someone who's fantastic technically, but we kind of have to put up with something that they're off in the culture. So first, coach that out of those people, or coach them out of the organization. So
Quick
that's the
question
first piece.
on that, in your experience and the experience of your listeners here. Um, do you pick that up through your experience and interactions with the team, day to day, week to week? Or is there another sort of supplemental way around personality tests or things of that nature that can be employed to sort of fast track and expedite,
Yeah.
sort of figuring that?
Well, so the first stage is who we allow on the team in the first place,
Oh yeah, the litmus
and we
test.
ensure they've got it before they come, and then we just help them to show it even more. So that's very clear early on, and there are some great tools out there that can help you in the hiring process first.
Hmm.
There's one I just looked at, a guy named Brett and John. They're the co-founders of this tech that's just really brilliant in what it does. I think it was called Who Hire, whohire.com. Great stuff on that, right? Can do some really good things for you. So you can check that out. He was on one of these podcasts. It's how I met him.
Okay.
And we just had a call earlier today, and I got to see all this stuff. I was like, okay, that's good. He's doing good stuff, all research back, great questions to pull some of that out. But we also use an interview process where I have the people tell me. So first, the job posting basically is bleeding these values,
Hmm.
and we're saying it forward really clearly. If you're not, and what was your second to last value you read?
Believe it's possible.
Great, believe it's possible. That's a fun one for finance people who often look in the rearview mirror at what's possible, right?
Yeah,
And so that's the difference between the CFO and the controller. The controller looks in the rearview mirror, and the CFO looks into the
that's
future,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's very unique for your group. And if you've got team members who are actually not believing it's possible and not this optimism and this we could create and this kind of thing, if you've got people who are not like that on your team, then you are dealing with problems that you shouldn't be dealing with.
Hmm.
Every one of those is a rub, and it's an issue. So first, in the job posting, scream it. If you don't love to see the world like this, even though you get the numbers, you see the numbers only represent what has been done, not bounds on what can be done, then you don't want to be here. And they're like, that's kind of weird. Why would you say that in a job posting? Say it, right? Or however it is you guys see it. You want to message early. Then in an interview process, you're interviewing and you're saying, tell me how this shows up in your life. Why is this like this is so important to us? Why is this important to you? And if they're giving a professional sounding response and seems respectful and they're giving thoughtful responses and things, that's a red flag to me.
Hmm.
I need to see them getting excited about it. I need to see, and for an accountant, that means they opened their eyes a little bit more. That might be excitement for an accountant, but still, excitement, whatever excitement looks like, I need to see them get out of interview mode and start to say, do I really get to be myself? So those are early things. Then, as you're moving through, I have my leadership team rate everyone else in the company when you're this size, you can, every single quarter. How well do they fit their values? How well do they fit their role?
Hmm.
So are they living the values and are they delivering on their, in your language, their OKRs for the given role or their KPIs probably, right?
Right.
We call them their big threes. And so do they fit and are they delivering? If it's a go every time, hey, great, they're doing well. If they're above and beyond, they're like in the green. Those are people I'm watching for my leadership opportunities, and I'm going to start tapping them.
Hmm.
But 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 a 3 out of 5 is you're living it, and I need to know anyone who's not living it is in the yellow or red, and they're coached that quarter up or out. So the team is all looking at them, and all the leaders are talking about it, not just the ones they report to. All 4 of you are saying, "Here's what I think of this person," and you're having a conversation. And every quarter we're coaching up or out. So
Hmm.
it shouldn't. it shouldn't be a surprise if your whole system is aligned with keeping the right people in and moving in your company. Um,
It's
Now,
good.
so that's a first thing. So this next layer of leaders, at first, you don't even have to give them a leadership job. Like they don't have to be promoted into it. Your quarterly thing, when you are identifying the OKRs with your current four-person leadership team, take one of those OKRs, and they probably only have one or two or three that you should be doing in a quarter anyway. Take one of them, one of the four of you owns it, build a team out. Just an ad hoc, like, like a Delta Force kind of team. Like we're pulling them in. They're doing a one-time job for us. They're coming in, and I'm picking people who were those fours and fives out of my rating system. I'm picking people across the company that would give me good insight because of who they are, or because of their role, or because of just because, right? I want to work with them. And I'm pulling them on this little task force team that's delivering on the OKR together that quarter. They're getting to outline what we're building for next year, for next 2 years from now. They're outlining it. They're doing some of the work. They're building the processes. They're fixing it. And what they're doing is they're being leaders.
Yeah.
They're being the leaders. You're trusting them with a little more every time. Their direct leaders doing the same thing. They were in the green. They were fours and fives in their ratings. That quarter, they have to have a plan for how they're helping them step up. They're handing them, here's how you would run my role if I'm not here. They're sharing that role with them.
Mm-hmm.
You step in, do this, run this meeting. And I want to know if I'm gone that I can trust it to run well. And I trust you. Let's work on this.
Yeah.
So they're just
Empowerment.
building them, right? That's right. One task at a time. And it can move fast. But right now, you can be building 10 different leaders all at once, even though you're like, I only needed two more. Like, build 10, start building 10,
Yeah.
have them ready to go, have them plugging in, doing this stuff. And then when it makes sense financially to have an official leader or the number of people so that there's enough support for your team, right? The one-on-ones, the helping them build and become the great financial people you want them to become, all that. Whenever that demand's there, they're already ready to plug in
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So I would say that's a first step. Um, if you were doing that, how would that help you grow? If you had, so again, you want to grow about 25% a year, right? To double every few years, it's roughly that.
Yeah.
Um, and so you want to grow about that rate. How will having the right leaders help you get there? Will that is that a key to you? Will it actually hold you back, or is this leadership thing just a nicety for you?
No, it's a key. It's a key to have the right people that you can trust to run specific um, functions within the business that, myself and my chief operating officer, at this point, we do a lot of the sales, we do a lot of the strategy, we do a lot of the business development, the brand equity that's out there in the marketplace. It's driven by us. And
Yeah.
so the leadership functions are not just client service teams and billable,
No, they're
roles.
functional leaders, it sounds like,
Exactly. That's really where
or
we
don't
want to
even have a
help.
team around them yet,
Yeah. That's
right?
that's really what we're focused on at this next iteration is those functional leaders, a sales, a head of people. With our business, being at the tip of the spear with technology is a huge piece to this. And so, AI is the hot thing right now. And how do you streamline and make things efficient? We're leaning into that. We're not, going to think it's going to replace everything we do. But people still want the human element. However, that's a discipline, right? Which is sort of
And
interesting
some
to
of
journey.
these are not coming from your team then, not your current team, right? Some of them are going to come from your current team that you're building into, but others are, how do I hire that junior person or senior person, but still that are hungry and humble? They're wanting to move, they're wanting to grow and do, that you're saying, look, you need to master the doing of it, and then I'm going to make you over the running of it in time to
Hmm.
build a team. But again, hire that culture fit and do it well. And so maybe some of those tools I share can be useful to you, or things around that nature. The second thing is We think because someone's good at a job that they could lead. And that's just wrong, right? That's where we make our big mistakes.
Especially
You've seen it in
in
your,
my business, David, I'll tell you, some really good technical accountants, that's all they want to do, and they love it.
they do not want to lead people. Yeah. And we want to make them better technically. And let's let them be on the forefront of the tech space even. And in the, the latest and greatest in accounting and practices. Great. We'll make them great technically and let them grow that way. This leading people side, you have to find out, do they find joy in developing the next generation?
Hmm.
If they find no joy in it, this can be hard. And it can be as easy as the ones who coach soccer for their kids' thing and find joy in that. That's enough. Or the ones who have children or who have grandkids or who do community things where they're organizing other people and they feel a little sense of pride of so and so stepping up into something and then saying, you could do that here. That's enough desire if they at least want it. And you've got to invite some of them. You got to kind of pull out of their shell. But what we don't do often is we don't teach them what it means to lead. We don't have a model for it. And so they just think a leadership means now I have a bigger KPI
Hmm.
and people that I don't have direct control over, even though they report to me, they're still people. I have all this variance. I can't control my KPI, but I'm just responsible for more. And that just feels overwhelming, right?
Well, really, what you're describing here, as we're talking about this, and I'm realizing it is somebody who has like a servant's attitude, a servant's heart, right? Because you're instead of serving clients, you're serving your people, whoever you're leading.
We're shifting in another direction can make a huge difference, and one who is willing to add value through other people.
Hmm.
And so now we use a model that we found to be very useful, and there's a lot more to it, but let me give you the high level because now that you're in a leadership role, you actually have very different KPIs. Your KPIs aren't just deliver everyone else's KPIs times 10, right? Because the number of people I have or whatever. That's not it. There's a part of that. But you now have a KPI around setting a vision, you have a KPI around building the team, and you have a KPI around delivering results while caring. And that's that servant attitude, deeply caring about your people. That your job is no longer to go home as the superhero who solved the client issue, but your job is to build superheroes
Mm.
who can solve client issues for the next 10 years, 20 years for us, right? You have a brand new job. And that does mean you go home feeling like a failure more than you used to, right?
Well,
Because we're walking through two-way doors now. You're inviting your team members to walk through the two-way doors,
I think you have to
go and
reframe what a
experience.
win is, right?
That's right. You've got to reframe it. It's a change and it takes a while to let go of it. That's so painful, Chris. That's painful. I mean, you remember doing it. You felt some of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely remember shifting my mindset and going from delivering, on client expectations and deliverables. And every time I would hit my mark on that, feel really good. This month, we crushed it for client ABC. And that is what
Yeah, yeah. And
really,
it was awesome,
yeah, it was great.
right? You're like going home, you're like kissing your spouse instead of kicking the dog because you're like, I'm a winner.
Yeah. And then for me, the next phase of that was as we grew and I hired somebody or other people who service the clients, teaching them and seeing them do that. I got a lot of joy out of that, right?
Yeah.
That was a huge
But at
learning.
first,
Sorry.
you at first though, didn't it feel like
Well, that's where I was
oh
going. At first, it did feel it was a weird feeling, right? Because you're like giving up control and things that you've done well and that you've built and that
yeah.
you've spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on. Um, and so at first, I feel like that was almost like ego, though, more than
Yes, it
anything.
is. It is.
And
And,
once you
and,
and
and,
once
and
you go through it and do it a few times and relinquish, right, for lack of a better word, relinquish the control and and see that other people are succeeding in that role. And instead of you doing it by yourself, you have five people doing it, right, across multitude of clients.
Yeah.
That feeling and that high was even better, right? And then,
That's right. But it took a while to get there, right? It just took a while to get there. And the failures, I mean, how many times did we want to jump back in and fix the
oh, I did it. I
problem?
did it. And I'll
Right.
tell you what, there were several times where I jumped back in because I was overzealous
Uh-huh.
and I made the situation worse. If I would have just,
Every time. Every time. And the message you send to your team is, I don't trust you. Or you don't have a good enough idea. Or maybe you have a great idea, but I can't let go. I'm a control freak.
right,
So you better not act without my direction. Slows everything down. Profits go out the window. Joy goes out the window. Everything comes apart. All the things you talked about, and I've done it too. I jumped back in, and so you said, how do I build my middle layer? You help to coach them through what you've already been through.
mm-hmm,
That shift you had to make, they have to make. You have to hire the right ones in who are aligned. You have to keep coaching them and leading them to the vision. Then you have to help them make the shift you already had to go through with empathy. It was painful, but you can do it faster because you had nobody coaching you.
right,
And now you can coach them and you've got their back. It's not like the whole business fails, right? You can work through this. You can lead them with questions that they can go and answer. Then in time, you can lead them by asking them to ask the questions that are key to solve and building around there. You're just helping them pick the doors and move faster because their risk is lower because you're there.
yeah,
Um,
good,
those are going to be some of the keys in building your leaders. So there are some other things, but just think, oh yeah, I have to teach them how to set the vision in their team and champion it through to the end. And that includes the metrics, the success, all those sort of things. But I have to set it. I have to build the team. I have to learn how to hire, lead, and fire people to that vision and to the mission we're trying to achieve and that hard work, that good, steady growth that we all love and enjoy. I have to get other people to engage in that and care about it. And I have to build a culture of accountability with my team where they would not want to let anyone else down
mm-hmm,
while caring about them. So if they don't know that this is their new job, that that's what you're measuring them on, they're likely to fail, and you'll put in several rounds of these middle managers and be unsatisfied until you finally get lucky and get the right one and they go,
yeah,
or you can build the success. So hopefully that's a helpful start for where we're at.
very helpful.
You are doing exactly the right work. This is the place to shift gears and to lead leaders instead of be that direct line leader like you have been.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the new craft you're learning. And it's a great craft to learn to lead leaders. So any other final thoughts, or can I get you to share your contact info? Because you are serving people exactly your size. It's your size that starts to need more fractional help, more insight beyond just a bookkeeper. We got to get smart, right? It's 3 to 5 million. If you haven't made that shift and started using someone like Chris, you're behind. It's time to, right? So, how do they get in touch with you, Chris?
Yeah, so you visit our website at www.wearequadrant.com. All the pertinent information and contact information is up there. My email is cmay, M-A-Y, at wearequadrant.com. Happy to talk to anybody who's interested and learn more about us. And just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on here and talk through some of this. Got some really great things to go back to the leadership team with and sort of think through how we continue to build this company. So I really appreciate you.
No, I loved having you on the call. And that wraps up another episode here of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. If you found value today, like, share, get it to other seven figure business owners so that they too can be part of this community. And they don't have to do this alone. They can get insights from each other, and keep your eye out for that. We uh, we will be setting up a Facebook group specifically for business owners on there. We'll send out information to our group and get that into the future podcast. So watch for that so that you can have more direct interaction with each other and with our team. Keep growing, keep striving, keep caring. Until next time.